Hey, so this is a video I don't particularly want to make because the matter I find very depressing, but I feel it is important to discuss the issues here. Just to be clear, this is not a monetized video. The reason I'm saying that is because there was another video related to the subject and the uploader was accused of profiting from it, and I don't want to be accused of that here, so this is not a monetized video and I'm not profiting from this. But I do want to discuss the issues. So last year, November last year, there was a boxing event in Great Yarmouth, Norfolk, and basically a young fighter by the name of Jakub, known to his friends as Kuba Moczyk, was died after the event. He was only 22 years old. His opponent was only 17. Now, whenever a boxing death occurs or a death in a boxing ring, it raises a lot of questions. This one has got, I would say, significantly less coverage than the death of Mike Tile last year, and I wonder was it because there's a few different circumstances. Mike Tile's death, I believe, was in a sanctions event. This one, as I understand it, and there's a lot of mixed reports going around the media, this was an unsanctioned event. There's a few people saying it was an amateur event. That's not technically true because, as I understand it, he was going to be paid £250. Now, any pay by definition is not an amateur event, but it can hardly be called professional either, given that this was not a sanctioned event by the British Boxing Board of Control or even by mainstream white collar boxing organisers or apparently by anyone. I don't even know who the promoter was. I've never heard of the guy before, but um, there are a lot of things that don't add up. So basically, the basics of this case is that in the second round, uh, Cooper's opponents looked to be in serious trouble, and witnesses said it looked like he was throwing up. Now, the referee, a man by the name of Melvin Payne, allowed it to continue, and I'll come back to that in a second. Anyway, it did continue, and the opponent then landed a shot on Cooper, and he went into a coma and died 2 days later. Now, the referee has subsequently said he's got 40 years' experience. He let it continue because the opponent indicated that he was okay to continue. Automatically, I think that's a problem. A referee, especially at that sort of level, has a lot of authority. I remember in my event, I took part in a white collar boxing event 3 years ago. We were told very strictly what the referee says goes. You have to listen to him. So he could have, in my particular bout, I lost because I wasn't defending myself. I wasn't given the impression that I was putting my hands up, and the other guy wasn't hurting me, but he was faster than I expected, and basically I was a little bit overwhelmed, so I wasn't defending myself. Now, from the referee's perspective, that makes it look like I'm in danger. Therefore, um, he made the right call. Of course, I was disappointed, but it's not good enough saying, "Oh, the fighter wanted to continue." If this guy was in serious trouble, his pride shouldn't get in the way of the referee doing the right thing. But it's subsequently there's a lot of things that have come out of this that really don't add up. One of the main points of contention is that there was apparently a lack of medical supervision. Now, Cuba's trainer said no doctor, no fight. So at the last minute, apparently the organisers, according to the inquest, got some sort of medical cover. But what form this took is really dubious. Apparently, the medical practitioner who was there, she has said it only took 10 minutes for them to reach that. Well, 10 minutes itself is a very long time when a guy's unconscious. In professional level, the doctors would be in there immediately. I remember the Joshua White fight. White had suffered a big KO. He wasn't knocked out, but it was a big shot. They were immediately giving him oxygen as a precaution, and he was fine. But that shows the contrast. Now, 10 minutes is an eternity. 1 hour. It took 1 hour for the NHS ambulance to arrive. I wouldn't blame the NHS team for that, because if this was an off-license event, it seems possible that they actually hesitated before calling it. Now, that's my conjecture. I'm not saying that is the case, but 1 hour, unless the traffic was very heavy in Great Yarmouth that night, I don't know what how that took so long. But like I say, I wouldn't blame the NHS team for that. Now, there's a lot of things that don't add up. Apparently, in hospital, according to Cooper's mother, the organizer of the event, promoted by the name of Aurelius Kerpa, approached her and offered 20 or 30,000 pounds or whatever she wanted. He has denied this in broken English. He speaks Lithuanian. He needed a translator, but he apparently said it would have made me look guilty if I'd taken money. And he did make a donation. Um, to make matters even more controversial, his twin sister has subsequently said that the family has discovered that Melvin Payne, this referee of 40 years' experience, has um, has been the trainer for his opponent. Now, that is sheer corruption. And if that is true, this referee needs to be struck off immediately. I'm going to look up after this video to see if he says his 40 years experience. Well, if that's true, then there's going to be some sort of indication of his record in box rec or something. If he means 40 years experience at unlicensed events, that's a very different matter. Because by nature, off-license events are going to be more reckless. This is why I'm always cautious about that. Now, technically, what I was involved in was not sanctioned by the British Boxing Board of Control. However, they were. I did get the impression that I was in good hands because they did take the medical side of things very seriously. They had medical team there before our bouts. Our pulses were tested. There was definitely a doctor ringside. I felt I was in good hands. I never at any point felt like they were throwing caution to the wind. We had to sign disclaimers. There was a lot of things going on in terms of they even said you will listen to the referee, like he's God in there. You have to listen to him, things like that. So I felt they were very professional about the way they went about that, and I will defend the UWCB organization for the way they conduct the event. I thought they were very professional in the way they went about it. Um, Clearly, this event that was not the case. I mean, and in terms of being amateur, again, I saw pictures. Well, he had no headgear on. He was bare chested. That's not an amateur fight. That's semi-professional, but clearly not licensed. And the fact he was being paid for it as well. Now, there's no positive caveat from this. It's a tragedy, and it's there's nothing good to take away from this, except that he was doing something he was looking forward to, and all the indication is, he wasn't forced into it, according to his twin sister, who, according to the reports, he was close to. Um, he was looking forward to the event, but she says that there was pandemonium after he was knocked out, and there didn't seem to be anyone in charge. That's very damning indictment. Now, there will be some, whenever these things happen, that say boxing is barbaric, ban it. I understand those sentiments because people can't rationalize that a young man has died in the sport. Let's ban it. The problem is, if you ban it, then it really does go underground completely, and you end up totally in the hands of absolute criminals. There is probably a problem out there, but I think it would get a lot worse. The Victorians tried to ban it, and that didn't make a difference. In the 1850s, bare knuckle boxing was banned, but it continued. So I don't think that is the answer. I understand the sentiments. I don't think it's the answer. There is a lot of ethical questions here, and the free will thing you cannot underestimate. It's not to say that there aren't parts of the world where there are young working class men who get into boxing because they don't have any other choice, and that's the problem of poverty. It's an issue that needs to be addressed where they have other options. But the point is, the vast majority of guys that get in the ring want to get in there. It's not because that they're forced into it. There is a lot of things to consider. But that doesn't. I've never taken the view, well, boxing's dangerous, so be it. And there's two schools of thought. There's people within the boxing community that say there should be no changes. I totally disagree. I think if this case has shown anything, it's that you cannot trivialize the safety factor. There's always going to be risks in this sport, but that doesn't mean you deliberately escalate those risks. There must always be. It must be absolutely legally mandatory that there is. There is doctors ringside, and anyone involved in this, I implore you, if you're operating outside the British Boxing Board of Control, have a conscience, do the right thing, make sure you have a medical team on standby. Just because there is risk doesn't mean deliberately escalate the risk. There has been great improvements made since the past. In the 1980s, the number of championship rounds was shortened from 15 to 12. That has certainly reduced the number of deaths at professional level. Um, since I think it was 1990, the Chris Eubank Michael Watson fight. Again, there's been improvements at professional level. On that occasion, there was no medical team on standby. That's why Michael Watson ended up in the way he did. It's been argued that had they arrived earlier, then maybe it would be different. We don't know that for sure. But there has been improvements made. Sadly, though, when these cases happen, they do get highlighted, as was the case with Mike Tall. And there's nothing positive to say. It's shit. It's depressing. Um, I mean, it gets me down. It really does. As a boxing fan, it gets me down. I hate to see things like this. But the other school of thought, like I say, is there's a sort of callous thing. Oh well, you live by the sword, you die by the sword. Whatever, he brought it on himself. That's rubbish. You know, no one deserves to die because they're doing something dangerous. That is totally absurd, and that's a callous attitude that some people have taken. This young man wasn't hurting anyone else in the sense that him and his opponent were opting to do this. Um, I will say this though, it once again reiterates, even though this is a totally different level from professional boxing, it really infuriates me when people say this guy's a tomato can, this guy's a bum, etc. Whenever a fighter dies or is seriously injured, it should be sobering to those idiots who say those things. No one should disrespect anyone that goes into the ring. So when I see cases like this, you know, it doesn't matter if they're talking about professional level, about some of the best fighters in the world. It's the risk is always there. So there's respect should always be there. But if you asked Jakub Moczyk, should boxing be banned, I think he probably would have said no. There's been examples of fighters who've been seriously injured and they've insisted, don't blame my opponent, don't blame the organisers. When I signed up for my event, I knew I was taking risks and I signed a disclaimer. But there can be some things coming out of this case. Definitely legal or illegal, licensed or not, the organisers should do the right thing and make sure that there is ringside medical cover. The truth is, there is corruption in the sport, and there's no point denying it. But there's no excuse for not having it there. And I do think that maybe some examples should be set in this case. Manslaughter charges, if those claims that the mother has made that he has blackmailed them or tried to offer them money, that's I think they should throw the book at him. And if the referee really was the trainer of his opponent, again, he should absolutely be struck off. I think there should be some charges here to set an example. That's my own feeling on it. So there isn't really much more to say. If I've got any particular information wrong, I take full responsibility for that. But there's been a lot of varying reports going around the press. So we'll leave it there. Let me know your thoughts. Please keep comments civil. And if you are a boxing critic, I would just ask you to consider if you're talking about it being banned, well, what alternative then would you have? You'd have a situation where all boxing goes underground, and the chances are you'd have far more incidents like this. So it's a tragic case. But one final point, it is tragic and it's depressing, but we should also remember the vast majority of fights don't end this way. Probably 99% of fights don't end with either a death or a serious injury. In fact, in sporting terms, believe it or not, cheerleading has a higher rate of injuries than boxing does, like permanent injuries. So there's a few things there to think about, and my heart goes out to this young guy's family and to his opponent because I can't imagine what he's going through. Thanks for watching. Let me know your thoughts.